What up? Welcome back to Forever Backlog, the show where I review my gaming backlog as I go through it, for your viewing pleasure. First of all, how cool is this?
Cool.
Second of all, I was sort of anticipating / dreading making this video because how does one tackle this after it's become such a cultural phenomenon? Oh, fuck. That's right, Dark Souls, lauded breaker of controllers, destroyer of social lives, originator of memes. How best to tackle this one? Well, while I figure that out, let's have our introduction. Developed by the most inconveniently named game company, Dark Souls saw its release in 2011, the second installment in the Souls series, as a spiritual successor to 2009's Demon Souls. At the time, Demon Souls was the new IP that sort of came out of nowhere to win multiple Game of the Year awards and breathing some welcomed fresh air into the genre. Riding on the coattails of its predecessor, Dark Souls took the franchise to a whole new level of popularity, or should I say notoriety, while enjoying a massive critical acclaim in its own right. Dark Souls is a third-person action RPG that, like the rest of the Souls series, is known for its broody tones, seemingly bare-bones presentation, deep combat mechanics, its fantastically vague mythology, and yes, its unforgiving difficulty. Imagine what an anti-hero to the action RPG genre would look like. Dark Souls is what you would come away with. It borrows from video gaming's older concepts to go against the grain of many of the modern trends of today. I won't pretend I can explain much of the story setting, so I won't even try. Suffice it to say that in the Kingdom of Lordran, it falls on you to take on an epic pilgrimage to see out your fate as the prophesized chosen undead, and, you know...
Kill more bosses? Kill more bosses.
But all jokes aside, I'll come back and touch on the story later on. Now for this one, I figured I'd break the mold a little bit and do a different sort of analysis for you guys. I feel like I wouldn't be accomplishing much just by perpetuating the circle jerk and telling you, oh, this game is so good, you just have to try it. You're probably very much aware of the praise and the reputation this game enjoys, and it's on that reputation that I want to touch on. It's partly due to that reputation that I feel it's difficult to pitch this game to new players. On the one hand, there's essential qualities and strong points that you have to bring up in order to describe what makes this such a special game. But bringing up those same points has the possibility of alienating potential newcomers and have them step back and think that perhaps this is not a game for them. So I thought I would make it the point of this video to address those players who are either on the fence or have yet to consider giving Dark Souls a try, or even those who have already tried and felt like their experience fell flat. And let me start off with a bit of my own experience with the Souls series so you know where I'm coming from. I had previously played through Demon Souls all the way to the end, and to me, this is one of the premier games of the last generation. It was one of those things where I would talk about this game to anyone who would listen, all the while bragging about how I had beaten it. So naturally, I was stoked as anybody to play the sequel. Except it's not actually a sequel. Considering how much I had loved its predecessor, Dark Souls had been burning a pretty big hole in my backlog, and all the while I would see how it became a gaming culture phenomenon where the original almost felt like a cult hit despite selling handsomely. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about Dark Souls. What makes it so good, what's not so good, what's mildly infuriating, what you should expect, and what's probably making you hesitate. Right off the bat, you notice the somewhat sober and raw design which begins to acclimate you to what will be some gloomy travels over the land of Lordran. The lack of fluff or any background music for the most part are there to play off your own sense of dread and anticipation as you traverse these chilly monochromatic sceneries. And from the start it is made clear that one of the running themes of Dark Souls and the series as a whole is that the game will not hold your hand whatsoever. At the same time though, you're given a level of freedom you seldom get from most other games. All areas of the game are interconnected somehow, and a lot of them are accessible from the get-go. Even areas that are supposedly too difficult are open to you from the very beginning. But again, rather than hold your hand or make you go a certain way, the game encourages you to make your own path and explore and adapt to your surroundings. And that's not just a novelty, it is one of the core concepts of the game, leaving it all up to you, the player. It invites you to embrace those mechanics, to abuse them. In many parts of the game, it invites you, almost dares you to break it. A good way of describing it is this. This game is always brutally honest with you. It never parades something in front of you that you can't kill or otherwise interact with, And by that same measure, it doesn't just bestow this freedom on you, trusting that you will do the right thing. Quite the contrary, the game is challenging you to do your worst. It is the antithesis of most other gaming experiences where everything feels breadcrumbed for you, and it is oh so liberating. Having said that, and this will come as no surprise because you've heard it a million times already, but this game is hard. You've also probably heard fans of the series defend that as hard but fair, not the cheap kind of hard. Which is true, think of it as Contra instead of Cat Mario. The game will punish you for wandering through certain areas unprepared, or by throwing certain enemies and bosses at you, but you're always left with the feeling that it is within your reach even if you don't know how to yet. In keeping with that, the game teaches you to tread carefully and be mindful of your surroundings. Respect that and you will be rewarded. Challenge it and it will only get harder. That also translates into the combat. You have to devote your full attention and plan every enemy encounter in a way that goes against most modern game design. To do this, you're presented with a slick, skill-based combat system that is the bread and butter of this game. I honestly can't name a more rewarding combat system than that of the Soul series. Getting to learn and master every facet of it and adapt it to every foe you find, the sheer satisfaction you get out of conquering the hardest bosses just after feeling woefully incapable at times is where this game wins you over. Now let me segue off that to address some concerns or things that may otherwise deter you from this game. If the combat is so polished and supposedly skill-based, why does it feel like I'm so bad at it, you may be asking? The answer probably lies with the development of your character. With everything that's been ingrained in you from most other games, the leveling of your character will probably feel completely counterintuitive. Investing in certain attributes or equipment might not yield the results you expect because this game goes by a familiar, yet very different set of rules. You also use the same currency to buy items as you do to level up, which always makes for some tricky decisions. My advice, take a couple of minutes to go online and search what character class will best suit your playstyle and how to effectively develop it. Second, the cryptic plot and the overall lack of direction is almost guaranteed to frustrate you at times. I feel you. As much as I try to tell you, like I would tell myself, that it's part of the game's charm and wit, it will get frustrating some of the time all the same. As long as you can contextualize it as part of the very concept of the game, it will not reach a tipping point that makes you give it up. And lastly, this game will demand a hefty amount of time and patience from you which you may not have right now or anytime soon. You'll have to relish the challenge that this game poses, as opposed to resenting it, to truly get the most out of Dark Souls. Also, you might find yourself thinking, plot? What plot? I can't follow any of this. And you'd be right. Part of the game's shtick is that it only clues you in on a story that is vague as all hell by default, via item descriptions and passing references made by NPCs. Again, a different concept I can appreciate, although I would have preferred that the scales could have been tipped just a tiny bit more in favor of letting you, the player, in on the tragic joke that is Dark Souls lore. It really speaks volumes of the artists and writing team's prowess that they were able to create such memorable characters with just a few whimsical comments and quotable one-liners.
The sun is a wondrous body, like a magnificent father. If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
Okay, so as not to completely break the format, I will still answer. Should you move Dark Souls up or down on your backlog? And the answer is you should move it aside to play Demon Souls first. Wait, hear me out. Not only is Demon Souls a fantastic game in its own right, in fact it just edges Dark Souls as my favorite, but it's where I feel you will get a better introduction to the Souls universe, as at least one of the caveats I mentioned will be softened. Now, don't get me wrong, demons can be just as cryptic as dark, but never did I feel as lost as I did on the second installment. A lot of that is due to the central hub which teleports you to other areas as opposed to the sprawling, interconnected lands of Dark Souls. In my opinion, you get a better feel for your progression, and that may ease you in a bit better to this new universe of concepts that is the Soul series. I am aware that Demon Souls is a PS3 exclusive, so a lot of people will not be able to take me up on my recommendation, but if you get the chance, I would say you owe it to yourself to start with the original. There's no continuity between the two. In fact, they take place in entirely different settings, so not playing Demon Souls will take nothing away from the enjoyment of its successor, it just might introduce you to the series a bit better. That and you'll be missing out on what for me is one of the all-time great RPGs. But never mind any of that if you can't get it and just play Dark Souls anyway. I loved it to bits as well. Oh, and make sure you get the DLC too. Okay guys, that's the end of my attempt at sounding like a big hipster douche. This one was quite the challenge, I'll say that. Also, you've probably noticed the Dark Souls 2 figure in the background. I have not played that one as of yet, as I intend to take full advantage of the fact that they re-released it for the PS4 and get my hands on that. Let me know in the comments if I've swayed you in any way, or what your own thoughts on the Souls series are, what games you've played if any, and how did you like them. Thank you so much for the ongoing support. Leave us a like in the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't already, all that good stuff. And as always guys, take care and I will see you all soon. Probably get a thumbnail of me looking like I'm worried. Yeah, that's it.